Hey guys, Cody Adair here. I'm with Jason Merkel, and today we're here to present the new E-flite UMX Turbo Timber, guys.
Yes.
Super excited, very iconic micro coming to you guys here. So Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, so for those that may be watching this later on YouTube, don't be alarmed. We are currently live on Facebook, and Cody has his laptop out. He's got his phone out. He's going to be monitoring the comments, any questions that come through. He's also taking a minute here to share this video from our Horizon Hobby Facebook page over to the E-flite page, in particular a few other pages as well. So if you guys are joining us live, that's fantastic. Be sure to put your questions and comments down below the video, so that way we can address those potentially. Of course, there's probably a lot of things we're going to talk about inherently that'll probably cover most of what you guys are interested in. And as Cody mentioned, this is a pretty iconic airplane. The UMX Timber, which came out a few years ago, is an airplane that a lot of people already own. It is by far probably the most popular UMX airplane we've had in the last few years, not to mention basically one of our best-selling airplanes for a number of years now across the board.
Yep.
And so the reason for that, it's a number of reasons really. Number one, it's small, UMX size, so it allows you to fly more places, smaller spaces. But two, one of the things that I think a lot of people sometimes forget and overlook is that even though it's a UMX, it's got big wheels, it's got big power, and so you can take off and land on surfaces like regular grass. A lot of ultramicros that have fixed landing gear, you can take some of the landing gear out, of course, and just belly land it. But let's say you've got an ultramicro like our old Carbon Cub. That had relatively small landing gear, relatively small wheels, and every time you try to land it in grass, it nose over.
Right.
The Turbo Timber, or the UMX Timber, of course now the UMX Turbo Timber, both have oversized wheels that allowed it to take off and land on those surfaces. Not to mention, then you can also take off and land on gravel and dirt and rocks, and I've seen people take off of little pseudo river beds where they made it with river rock. Surfaces that again most ultramicros couldn't take off out of. It's got enough power that it gets up real quick, and then it's nice because you can keep it in a relatively small space. So a lot of people were able to fly the UMX Timber in their front yard, maybe their backyard, obviously at a local park, soccer field, baseball field, obviously your flying field, and it had everything going for it. It had lights, so you could fly it even early in the morning, late at night. I do know some people that flew it in the night hours.
Absolutely.
It was a little bit difficult for some people, but it was certainly possible because it has the full complement of lights on it. And then on top of that, it has flaps. So it's one of our more full house UMX models.
Right.
So it actually is 5 channels plus the additional channel for actuating safe select, so 6 channels total. And so it's got all of that already installed. It flew great. And I don't think a lot of people realize, to this day, I don't think a lot of people realize this. The original Timber, UMX Timber, it can do everything.
Right.
It can hang on the prop almost at full throttle. Some batteries a little better than others. The UMX Turbo Timber, we put more power in, so we could hover and pull out. But that said, on top of that, it also had the capability to do crazy aerobatics. You could do incredible snaps, spins, inverted flight, knife edge flight. A lot of people didn't fly it that way. Maybe they thought, oh, this is a STOL airplane, it's not made for that. I'm just gonna do short takeoffs and landings and fly around real slow. It could do that very well as well. So it was a very, very well-rounded model, which is a part of why it's been so popular for so long. And to be honest, a part of us was like, well, should we even change it at all? It's so good.
Right.
In some cases, I think some people might argue it's almost perfect. Almost perfect. Nothing's perfect, right? So we took the original UMX Timber and we looked at it. We said, what does it need? And one of the things we talked about was the landing gear in particular. And so for those that already have a UMX Timber now, you're probably familiar with this, that the wire landing gear and the fairings have a little bit of flexibility to them, and the fairings will bump into the fuselage. They'll dent the fuselage.
Right.
And then if you're flying over some surfaces, the wheels will bend back enough that'll help the airplane nose over, or cause the airplane to nose over. So one of the things that we addressed on the UMX Turbo Timber is now we have a new landing gear design which secures those fairings to the fuselage. So not only do you have it attached at the front where the wire strut was at, now you've got an additional point in the back with a screw that's holding that entire assembly more secure.
Right.
So now that fairing shouldn't rub into the fuselage like it did before, and then also the landing gear is a little bit stiffer. So now when you're taxiing or you're taking off over certain surfaces, it's not going to bend the landing gear like it could on the original UMX Timber, which allows you probably to fly it on even more surfaces.
Yep, absolutely.
So that was one of the things that we thought, okay, we could definitely change that and make that better. Now, looks are of course subjective, but on the larger timber, we had the original timber 1.5 meter, we just called it the timber 1.5 meter, and then we made the turbo timber to replace it. And the turbo timber, we put the turboprop style nose on, and for those that are unfamiliar with what a turboprop is, basically it's a jet engine that's running into a gearbox that runs a propeller. And so a lot of the airplanes that use those, they have the dual exhaust oftentimes, or even more exhaust sometimes, and then they also have a relatively long nose to kind of hold that jet engine in there.
Right.
And then that kind of sticks things out, and they usually have to put more blades on the propeller. Sure. So that way the diameter doesn't get too much larger. So the original timber became the turbo timber 1.5 meter. We put the longer nose on, we put the exhaust, simulated exhaust stacks, we put a more powerful power system in it, 3S and 4S compatible. And some people loved they absolutely loved the looks of it.
Right.
Some people didn't like the looks of it so much. So, you know, that said, obviously you can see the differences here in the noses. We'll show them up close here in a minute. But we do have the longer nose on the Turbo Timber, UMX Turbo Timber. We decided to go ahead and emulate the bigger brother, which is our current model, one of our still best-selling models. People absolutely love the original timber, but then they really love the Turbo Timber because we took something really good and made it even better, really great. And I think we did that here too, because not only did we change the landing gear, we changed the looks. Looks, of course, subjective, so some people may or may not like that. But one thing we did do, which I think everybody's going to appreciate, is we put more power in it. Just like the big brother.
Yeah, that's what I wanted out of mine.
Yeah.
So.
So we did put a higher KV motor in it. Well, and I'll tell you, we waffled back and forth between, do we do 3S? Do we do 2S? Do we do 2S and 3S? And I will say that we learned a lesson when we released the UMX F-27 a few years ago. That was our first 3S powered ultramicro airplane. So it had a regular 2-pin JST connector. You had to use a 3-cell battery. You couldn't use a 2-cell battery. We set the KV and the prop size of the power system to make sure that it worked really well on 3S. And so a lot of people that didn't buy it told us why they didn't buy it is because they didn't want to have to buy new batteries.
Right.
They have a bunch of the 2S 280 batteries, or other similar class batteries that have the 3-pin, 3-wire connector. Basically, the balance connector or the balance leads are attached to the main power connector, and so they have a ton of these 2S batteries. And when they saw that the UMX F-27 required 3S, say 200, 300, 400 milliamp batteries, they had to buy those, and they couldn't use them in anything else, so they didn't buy the airplane as a result.
Right.
And so those batteries weren't very expensive. They were like $8 or $10, but I understand. You got a couple of these, you got 3, 4 of these 2S packs, you might as well use them if you got them. And so originally we started by trying to make this power system both 2S and 3S compatible. Now, a lot of our larger E-flite aircraft are kind of mid-size models, like the Turbo Timber 1.5 meter. They're both 3S and 4S compatible, which people love, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people now, the 4S is like the new 3S.
Yeah, I think if I had to go out to the field, my inventory would probably be mainly 4S batteries.
Mainly 4S now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that way, right? I mean, for a long time you had a lot of 3Ss, and you probably still have a lot of 3Ss. And so a lot of people appreciate that we give those options on the larger size. Now, a lot of guys may say, okay, so 3S and 4S, you did that, no problem. No motor change, no prop change, no ESC change, no big deal. But 2S and 3S is a bigger difference.
Right.
You basically have 50% more cells. You don't have 25% more cells, or sorry, 33% more cells. So, the difference in RPM is substantial between 2S and 3S, far more substantial than it is between 3S and 4S. And so we tried really hard, guys. We worked on different KV motors, different size motors. We tried different props. We tried the same motor with 2S and 3S, but different props. And no matter what we did, we couldn't get it to fly as good on 2S as the original Timber, which is what we wanted, UMX Timber, and then on 3S to have more power. Right. We could get less than UMX Timber power on 2S, and then better on 3S, and the power system would live. But unfortunately, it wasn't what we were looking for. We really wanted guys to get better performance out of their 2S battery. If we could make 3S work on top of that, great, icing on the cake. But we couldn't. So we tried really, really hard for a long time. We were all pushing for it. But in the end, we decided to go with the same size motor. And some guys have speculated it's a larger motor. It's not. It's the same size can, same design of motor. Everything's the same about it. The only difference is it has higher KV. So was the original KV?
3,000.
3,000 in the UMX Timber, and now?
Right, 3,400 in the new one.
3,400 kV. So we bumped it up, almost 15%, and that's a pretty good bump up in power. And then we switched to the 3-blade prop.
Right.
which also I think changed the power loading quite a bit.
Right.
So
I think the new motor with the higher kV rating and the prop is what gives you that ability to do the hovers and the punch
the two
out.
together,
Yeah,
not just
absolutely.
the higher kV motor. That gave you a little more pop, but the 3-blade prop also does pull a little more current, add a little more thrust, a little more speed. So that said, the power system combination results in considerably more power. The original UMX Timber on a pretty good, say 2S280 E-flite battery, our most popular recommended battery, the 30C, it would on a good day, depending on if you're at sea level or higher than sea level, if your battery is cold or new or old, it would basically hover at full power, maybe climb out just a hair. But you could not hover down on the deck and punch out vertically. That was what we were looking for. Now you can.
Now you can.
Now you got that and some. So that's really a nice kind of step up. Now a lot of guys are gonna say, well, I'm not gonna hover my timber. No problem, you don't have to hover it, but it's kind of nice to be able to. And then you know what's also cool though? Now that you have more power, you can take off in less distance. I know the original UMX Timber jumps right off the ground, right? But now it more jumps off the ground.
If you haven't checked out our launch video, we have a couple influencers that we've sent some of these to. We've got Pilot Ryan, those guys. We have the RC Geek, Chris Wolf. Those guys have really cool videos out there.
RC Sailors.
RC Sailors as well. Those guys have really cool videos of this model taking off in like two feet. I mean, it's really cool.
And
guys.
honestly,
Lots
you
of
could
power.
probably get it off in less. If you hold full up, have full flaps and hit full throttle, I mean, you're talking inches till it's off the ground.
And you got the power to pull out vertical
That's
now,
the thing.
Very
Yeah,
cool
with
stuff.
the original UMX Timber, you could pull out kind of vertical, but then you had to push the nose down, otherwise you'd run out of speed and thrust. And so now with this guy, the UMX Turbo Timber, just go straight up and keep going.
Absolutely.
So that is really cool. So you have the option of shorter takeoffs if you want. You have the option to hover if you want and pull out vertically if you want. But then on top of that, you can do more aerobatics. You now have more speed, you have more thrust. And a lot of guys, I still don't think realize the UMX Timber can do all the aerobatics you can think of. It can do point rolls, knife edge, inverted, snaps, flat spins, blenders. It could do all that. Now it just does it even more as the UMX Turbo Timber. So I think, again, we took an iconic airplane that was already pretty darn good, and we just massaged it a little bit. We kind of call it like an evolution. We evolved it into now the UMX Turbo Timber, which I think addresses a lot of people's main concerns about the product. It gives it more power. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. You got a throttle stick, right? So you can throttle back. That said, let's speak to that real quick. So it does pull more current now, right? On the 2S batteries.
Higher kV motor, new prop, there's a little more draw for sure.
So you are pulling more current at full throttle. Now, if you were to go up and fly, let's say you have a UMX Timber now and you just like to go up and cruise around at the lowest throttle setting possible to get maximum flight time and just cruise around as slow as you can. You could do the same thing with this airplane and you'll probably get almost the same flight time. Probably give or take identical. But that said, now that you have more power, you have the option to use more power. And I'll admit, when I have more power, I tend to use more power.
With great power comes great responsibility.
And that great responsibility is to use throttle management. Unless you're like me and you're like, no need for throttle management. I'll just get a couple extra batteries.
Do you only know 0 and full, Jason?
Well, sometimes I fly like that. It's like an on-off switch. Hey, when I started in electric, for what it's worth, I've been doing this for, I've been flying electrics for almost 30 years now. My first electric airplane literally had an on-off switch. On the side of the airplane, you turned it on and it just ran until the battery died. Then I put a servo on it, and so you could go full throttle and flip the switch on and pull it off, and it shut the power off. So anyway, it's a long time ago. You guys can
I wasn't even born yet.
Probably not. Actually, he wasn't, so that's fine. But now we have a fully proportional electronic speed control in there, so you can throttle up, throttle back, partial throttle operation. Not as efficient per se because you have a lot of switching and things going on, but it still will give you more flight time if you throttle back, use throttle management. I would say most people, their flight times will be a little shorter though, because they are going to enjoy that extra power. They're going to take off a little faster, they're going to climb vertical a little longer, they're going to hover a little bit more. And so for that reason, we wanted to point out a couple of things. You can use the same 2S280 30C batteries. There's no problem with that. These batteries are capable of, what is that, almost 9 amps basically of output. It's not pulling quite that at full throttle. However, it's pulling almost 40 to 50% more current at full throttle, which means that if you've got old batteries, some of these 280s have a bunch of flights on them, maybe they're a couple years old, maybe you've stored them fully charged, which is bad to do, by the way. Do not do that. Make sure you store even these little baby batteries at 50%, 3.8 volts, 3.85 volts per cell for the best longevity. But if you have old tired 280s, even if they're relatively recently new and it's a cold day, you're probably going to hit low voltage cutoff a little bit prematurely. So for example, right now it's 0 degrees outside at the moment. I think maybe it's
close.
Positive
it's
one.
Close.
I don't know.
It's
so
just cold.
If we go outside right now with a fully charged 2S280 with this power system, it'll probably hit LVC almost immediately at full throttle. On the old UMX Timber, it may not for about a minute or so because it's pulling less current at full throttle. Now, if the battery warms up either in the plane or if we warm it up inside before we go out, you'll probably not hit LVC as quickly. But again, in most conditions, say sub-room temperature conditions, if you've got a not very good 2S280 or whatever 2S batteries you guys are using, you're probably going to hit LVC sooner with this. But don't be alarmed. You probably just need new batteries. Or you can use less throttle. That's an option as well. So a couple of cool things on the LVC. Obviously, the airplane has an ESC inside, and it's been programmed to have a low voltage kind of pulsing, soft low voltage cutoff we call it. So it kind of pulses the power, so that way it keeps the voltage from getting too low, then it raises back up, then it comes back down. And so you can kind of audibly hear that. But sometimes we don't always hear that. Maybe we're flying with other people, maybe it's a little windy. And so on top of that, one of the other things that we've added is this has an all-new control unit inside. So all new electronics inside, which uses our newest Spectrum chip and now gives us telemetry.
Right.
So we now get the battery voltage from the 2S pack that's in the airplane through the receiver back to our airwear equipped transmitter. So you have to have an airwear equipped transmitter that's compatible. DX6E, 80.
Make sure it's up to date.
Oh yeah, the latest software, you gotta have that. And then it'll show you the real-time 2S flight battery voltage on the transmitter screen.
Right.
When you're within range.
Right. So guys, there was a lot of questions in here in the feed about whether this airplane has Smart. So Smart as an ecosystem offers you several things: temperature, RPM, battery voltage independent cell data. That is not this, but you do get total voltage of your battery reported back to your transmitter. That's the only feature you're going to get here, which I think that's really all that you need for this particular airplane.
Yeah, when we use that Smart terminology, what we mean is the full suite of all of those features. Right. It's not just battery voltage, it's temperatures, it's if you use a Smart battery with your Smart ESC and a Smart receiver, you get all kinds of additional data, individual cell voltages, temperature of the cells, so on and so forth. Right. So this isn't that. UMXs, we'll be honest, they're not going to have that anytime soon. Right. So we do at minimum have that voltage, which is already beneficial because again, if you don't hear it pulsing in the air, you can set the voltage alarm on your transmitter depending on your battery to give you an audible alert here. Right. Or if you have a voice equipped transmitter, to give you a voice alert on the transmitter while you're flying around. So that's a nice kind of step up. So real quick on that, so again, this has a new control unit in it. It does have a slightly higher current ESC inside. So you don't want to just take this 3400 kV motor and throw it in your old Timber and go, boom, I got a turbo Timber. Right. It probably, on a hot day especially, will overheat and maybe fail your control unit. So this control unit was built with a higher capacity ESC for that reason. And on top of that, again, it was built with the newest Spectrum chips. So we are no longer able to get the chips that we've been using for many, many, many years in all of our receivers and control units for Spectrum. We had to update to a new chip, which is good and bad. Well, it's not bad really at all. The downside is that it does cost more. Things have changed over time, but now the chipsets are better than they've ever been. And the awesome benefit of that is we have the ability to do more. For example, telemetry. We have more data to work with. We have better range. We've got a lot of benefits that come along with that new chip. It just does cost a couple bucks more. Right. And so that's a part of the reason that this went up in price a little bit over the original. So it's $10 more, guys. That's it. It's $10 more. And yes, it costs a couple bucks more for the new chip, a couple bucks more for the higher current ESC, a couple bucks more for a 3-blade prop versus a 2-blade prop, or a couple screws to secure the landing gear. All these little things kind of add up. And so it's not going to be uncommon if we refresh airplanes for the price to go up slightly, especially the UMX models. And you guys have noticed we are discontinuing some UMX models here or there. Some may come back with new electronics. One of the reasons some of them are going away is because we can't make those electronics anymore. Right. And we can't just take this board and slap it into one of those airplanes and call it done and good to go, because there are other things we have to worry about, compliance with the particular motor in that or the servos that are in that airplane. There's all kinds of variables. But that said, if we do bring some of those back, they may come back at a little bit higher price point, but the benefit is you're going to get usually probably more power, either a better ESC and or motor, or you're also going to then have telemetry data, which is really cool. So you get some tangible benefits for that extra $10. And I think in this case, the $10 is worth it. It's going to give you a lot more enjoyment. You get more capability now in the same package that it was before. Yeah,
very cool stuff. Yeah. So while we're kind of on the topic of parts, so do you want to go into why we may have a wing with servos, why we have a replacement wing without servos? duplicate tails, things like that.
Oh.
You hit enter there. But yeah,
Sorry.
so let's go over parts a little bit here, guys, and just discuss what's new.
Yeah, so the overall airframe is more or less the same. So if you look at, for example, the wing is identical. Nothing changed in the shape of the wing, the ailerons, the flaps, they're all the same. Everything is the same. The only difference is the UMX Turbo Timber has a different set of decals on it. So when you buy a replacement wing for a Timber, it comes without decals. And that wing will work on here as well. So we do sell that wing. We've been selling it for many years. But one thing that we did is we added a second wing that now has the flap servo and the aileron servos already installed. Because if you ever have to replace the wing, you'd have to pull your old servos out, glue them into the new wing, run all those wires, and it can be done. It's just not fun to do.
Right.
So we do offer both wings. We're still going to sell the original wing without the decals, which fits both models. No problem. You can buy that if you want, or you can also buy the other wing that already has the servos installed.
Right.
And then of course you'll have to buy the decal sheet depending on if you've got a turbo timber or a regular one, or if
Right.
you don't have to use decals at all if you don't want to. Right. So tail set, same thing. The horizontal tail is identical. We did kind of oversight snafu a little bit, and we do have two item numbers. So we have a turbo timber version and the original version. They're identical, guys. They're the same stab. We'll phase one of them out over time. Right. And the decals don't come on it. So again, that's what makes them interchangeable. The elevator and stab did not change. The rudder did not change. The fuselage, however, you guys will see there, it has changed. Obviously, the nose.
Good comparison here. I think the Turbo Timber, the UMX Turbo Timber, has a larger presence than this one because
Yeah,
it's
it
got
does.
the longer fuselage. It seems like a bigger model.
It does.
It does fly like a bigger model as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a little heavier,
Yeah.
but it's also got a little more volume overall, and so it is slightly longer, basically. The overall wing and stab and the behind the wing fuselage is all the same.
Yep.
So the nose does change, so the fuselage changes to a different model, and then also the hatch changes because, of course, the hatch is all the way up to the spinner.
A lot bigger
So
hatch there, yeah.
the hatch is different, the fuselage is different, and then of course we talked a little bit earlier about that landing gear difference. So you can use the new landing gear in the old airplane. The catch is there's no hard points in the fuselage of the original UMX Timber to accept the screw.
Right.
So for that reason, you could use them, but you wouldn't be able to secure it the same way. Now you could potentially add a hard point and screw them in if you wanted to.
Sure.
That's certainly an option. You can use the old landing gear on the new one without the screws, but I don't think anybody would want to do that. But those are interchangeable. Again, the motor is the same size, motor mount's the same. The difference is it's higher kV, so it pulls more current. So you wouldn't want to just drop this motor into a UMX Timber because you could potentially burn out your control unit, your ESC and your control unit. So the motor is different, the propeller is different. This is actually the 3-blade prop from the UMX Cirrus. So this has been out there for a while, no big deal. Of course, the spinner's a little bit different shape as well. But again, most of the parts are interchangeable. The servos are basically all the same. And real quick on the servos, over time, the linear servos, we've kind of refined them. So the model numbers, item numbers didn't change, but there's been some subtle tweaks here or there. And now the servos are getting more reliable, they have better performance, and so on and so forth. So rather than keep introducing all new versions of the servos, we just refine the ones we've got.
Very cool.
And so those servos are all basically the same, but again, the control unit itself, which is the receiver and the ESC, that unit has changed. And of course, the AS3X and Safe Select program is slightly different. The gains are adjusted a little bit different, primarily because this airplane has more power, so at higher throttle settings, you would need lower gain, so on and so forth. So yeah, let's talk about that really quick. So I think a lot of people may already know this, but these are bind and fly basic models. They come with the Spectrum receiver in the control unit already, so they bind to a Spectrum transmitter, DSM2 or DSMX equipped, and so it does have built-in AS3X, and then also Safe Select, optional use Safe Select. And so AS3X is just 3-axis gyros on the aileron, elevator, and rudder that helps smooth things out. It makes an airplane like this that's small feel bigger.
Right.
You can fly this in more wind. Like I would never fly an airplane this size 10 years ago in any wind. I'd just be like, nope, it's windy, I'm not flying it. I'm not gonna waste my time. I'm gonna be fighting it the whole time. Now I'll take one of these out on a 5 to 10 mile per hour day, and yeah, you can see it bouncing around a little bit, but if it didn't have those gyros, it would have been all over the place.
Right.
But as soon as I move the stick, I'm in control.
Right.
So it's never in my way. I can do all the aerobatics, I can do all the precision flying that I want, because when I move the stick, I'm in command. But when I'm not moving the stick, the gyros are trying to keep it as smooth and as on track as possible, which is different than Safe Select. Safe Select uses accelerometers. It knows where level is, relatively speaking. And so when you have Safe Select turned on, which you'll actuate with a switch on the transmitter, when you have it enabled, turned on, when you use aileron or elevator, you have limited bank angle limits and pitch angle limits. So you can't roll upside down, you can't pitch upside down. So you can't pitch down too much either. When you let go of the aileron or elevator stick, the airplane automatically goes back to level.
Right.
So that is safe. That makes it fly in a straight line. And if you move the stick, you get to take over a little bit of the control, but not all the control. And when you let go, it snaps back. So a lot of people kind of still confuse SAFE and AS3X. They're very different animals. They're very different things. A lot of our airplanes have both now. Again, Safe Select being optional. So in our larger aircraft, one of the things that we did differently is we allow you to bind the receiver with or without Safe Select enabled. So on our park flyer aircraft, for example, the Turbo Timber 1.5 meter, how you bind it dictates whether or not you have Safe Select active.
Right.
So if you bind it like normal, you put your bind plug in and you plug in your battery, you turn on your transmitter, everything binds, then you pull your bind plug out, you have AS3X, that's it. But if you plug in your bind plug in your battery, then you unplug your bind plug and bind your transmitter, now you have Safe Select on. Now you can assign it to a channel with a switch so you can turn it on and off. So you have AS3X, you have Safe Select.
Right.
You can turn it on and off. So a lot of people do that. Now in ultra micros, we don't have bind plugs. We don't have bind buttons. We only have auto bind. And so for that reason, we basically enable Safe Select always out of the box.
Right on
it's
channel 5.
Always active, always on channel 5. So on our bigger aircraft, we don't usually assign it to a channel. We allow you to pick a channel between 5 and 9. So if you have a 7-channel transmitter, a lot of guys, for example, if you have a Warbird, which has retracts and flaps, you put it on channel 7. If you have a Turbo Timber, you may put it on channel 5. And then of course with all Spectrum transmitters that are programmable, you can set which switch is actuating which channel. So you can assign that. Now personally, I use the B switch, which is the 3-position switch on this shoulder, kind of top here. Out of the box, because the Ultra Micro is programmed to the gear channel, it's on the gear switch, which by default is this 2-position long throw switch in the back of the A switch. So when you get a brand new UMX airplane that has Safe Select, you don't have to do anything different when you bind it. All you have to do is bind it normal, and you already have Safe Select. But here's the problem. A lot of people don't realize 9 times out of 10, Safe Select is on. So they go and take off, and they're like, what's going on? I'm fighting it, because Safe Select is on. If they flip their gear switch, boom, it's off.
Right.
But a lot of guys don't even check that on the ground or don't realize it. You know, you guys might watch the video that Pilot Ryan and Bobby K did, and I don't think Bobby realized it was on that switch, and he was flying in safe most of the time.
Well, I think in that case, I think Ryan himself was more or less, working the trim and trying to get things right, where Bobby was just smooth sailing the whole time.
Even though it was windy, he's like, oh, this thing flies great, because Safe was on, which is great because it makes it easier to fly, especially even in the wind.
Right.
But it does, limit you. You can't get upside down. You can't do loops and rolls.
That's a really good example, guys. Is definitely check out Pilot Ryan's video on the UMX Turbo Timber. Those guys went out and flew in like 10 or 15 mile an hour winds, and you can really see the difference from both aircraft, one being in safe and one not being in safe, just what they had to go through. Really cool video, definitely check it out.
So one thing I'll point out is I just plugged in the battery. I haven't raised the throttle to 25%. Right now, AS3X is working, but I will tell you, it's on the Safe Select switch position. But Safe is not active right now because I haven't advanced the throttle to 25%. So you see right now, when I bank, the ailerons they move a little bit to kind of smooth things out, but then they go back to neutral. When I turn Safe on, normally, flipping this switch back and forth would change that. But I haven't gone to 25% throttle, so I'm gonna do that real quick. Now watch. Now when I have my, in this case, the gear channel switch, which is the A switch. Now look, when I bank and I try to hold basically it into a right bank, it's trying to give me left aileron to get it back to level. Now watch, as I go back to level, it's gonna level itself out. That is Safe on. If I flip the switch to now Safe off, if I do that same thing, look, now I'm holding it in that same position with the right bank.
Right.
Nothing's happening. I'm moving it, and the gyros are smoothing it out, but it's not safe. Now I'm gonna flip back to safe. Boop, right back, trying to take it back to level. And so that's how you can tell whether Safe is on or not. And again, in an ultra micro like this, it's always on channel 5. I typically reassign channel 5 then to my B switch. That's just what I prefer. Personal preference to some degree, but you have to make sure that that switch is operating the direction you expect. Also, you have to bump the throttle over 25% to be able to check that.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff.
Oh, real quick, I can show then, you guys won't be able to see it on the screen probably because I'm so far away, but on the telemetry data screens now, I do have the voltage, the minimum and maximum voltage of the receiver battery, in this case the flight battery.
Right.
And so the nice thing is that I can also scroll over and I can see the real-time voltage that is right now. So right now it's at 7.5 volts. So this battery is a battery that's been flown. It isn't fully charged, and I can see that even before I take it. That's a nice thing. What you can do is you can plug in your battery, and let's say you forgot to check. Just real quick, make it a rule of thumb. Look down and go, oh, yeah, that battery's fully charged. It's a 2-cell LiPo, it's 8.3 volts, 8.4 volts, good to go. If it's 7.5 volts, you shouldn't take off.
Not even that, but if you guys set your alarm, which there's a default alarm in there, as soon as you give throttle, your alarm on your transfer will go off too. So it's just like smart, not quite smart, but with regards to your battery, it's smart.
Partial smart.
Partial smart.
And like we talked about earlier, you had that audible indication from the airplane itself with the soft low voltage cutoff of the ESC, but now you can program an additional voltage alert in your transmitter so it beeps and or speaks to you to tell you when your voltage is below a certain threshold. And you're going to want to play with that a little bit. It's going to depend on your batteries somewhat, whether or not it's cold outside, so on and so forth. But real quick, I'll show you guys, obviously you see, probably hopefully can see the lights.
Turn
some
the
of the different lights.
Yeah,
so we got a full complement of lights on there. And then also, of course, functional flaps. And one thing that we did differently when we scaled the original UMX Timber down from the big one, we actually did increase the size of the ailerons and the flaps relative to the wing to make it have more aileron authority and give you more flap authority. And we have just kept that all on the UMX Turbo Timber itself. So all of those things are, little tweaks that we do to airplanes that a lot of people don't even notice. There's other planform changes, slight planform changes when we went from the big one down to ultra micro. So it's not just as easy as take that airplane, shrink ray it, boom, ultra micro.
Right.
That's why we don't have UMX Timber X or UMX EC1500. We can't just do that.
Right.
We are thinking about it and we've tried different things, but it's not always an option that's that simple. Right. So something to watch out for, because I think a lot of guys expect it to just be that simple as, oh, you already have it done? Just scale it down and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's definitely not that simple, guys.
Definitely not that simple.
I wish it was.
We do wish it was. Oh, so I unplugged the battery and now it's telling me my low voltage alarm is on because the battery voltage dropped below what I had it set to. So not a big deal, just something that is a nice kind of touch that you have that technology now built into an ultra micro model. You don't have to buy anything extra to do it. It's already built right in. You plug in the battery and you go.
Right.
So speaking of battery, 2S280, very popular. A lot of guys have, you have some of these, right?
Yeah, I got like a dozen, maybe 200, give or take.
200?
Maybe. I have a lot of those batteries.
That's a lot of batteries.
I got a lot of those.
So you're happy that...
I'm one of those guys that likes to go out and spend 8 hours. I tell my wife, I'm going for 2, and then I come home the next day. That's how I like to go out and fly.
I hope she's not watching.
She's not watching. There's no way.
So, at any rate, this very popular battery, a lot of people have come across this or seen it in one form or another. It has a 3-wire, 3-pin connector. It's 3 wires. Basically, you've got your main power wires on the outside. So when you plug in the 2 on the outside, just like the connector inside the airplane is configured, with the outer 2 pins and not the middle one, you have power as a 2S LiPo. But you also have the 3rd wire, which allows access to the individual cells for balancing. Right. So all of that's built into one connector and one wire lead. We wanted to do that to make it simpler and lighter, and also keep the cost down, all these things. There's a lot of tangible benefits to it. So a lot of guys have these batteries. They may have gotten a charger with an airplane or a helicopter that will charge this, a very simple charger with a little push button start. That's great. But let's say you have a regular charger. So if you have a charger that has banana outputs, you can buy this special adapter lead that we've got, which I believe the item number is EFLA 700UM. Right. We'll put a link to it in our video description when we put this video on YouTube later on. So this adapter allows you to plug it into your charger, into your banana leads, and then it's got 2 connectors. It's got one that goes to your balance port on your charger, and then one that goes to the battery itself. So now you're charging and balancing the battery on your regular charger. So that's great. Now, if you have a new smart charger, which a lot of people do, this isn't a smart setup, it's not a smart battery, so you don't have to worry about smart. However, a lot of our smart chargers have an IC3 connector built into the output side. So in order to use this adapter, because we don't make a smart adapter version of this, you have to buy this particular adapter, which goes from an IC3 to 4mm bullets. Then I can plug this into my smart charger, and I can plug my adapter lead here into this lead, and now I can also plug it into the balancer and plug it into the battery. Which, I know it looks like a lot of wires and a lot of complication, guys. It's not. It's super simple. You just buy these things once and boom. You don't have to do any soldering, no tweaking, no nothing. Some guys make their own leads and make them a little simpler, but you can buy these from us already pre-made. We'll put the links in the description for the video. Also, we'll put a link to the battery as well. I think these batteries are $8.
They're pretty cheap.
So that's why most guys have 200 of them.
Yeah, don't call me out. Don't call me out on live, man.
It seems just a little weird. It seems a little excessive. I don't know. So
I told you I'd go out for days, man, not hours.
Oh, now it's days.
Yeah,
First
days.
I'm going for 2 hours, honey.
It's like,
come back 8 hours.
It's like minimum 8 hours.
Now I'm going for 2 hours and you come back 2 days later?
It depends, man. It depends on my mood.
So you better not do that tonight. This is Valentine's Day, by the way.
Sometimes I really get the itch to go fly, man.
This is Valentine's Day.
If you've seen Kyle's video that just posted earlier today,
the Valentine's video?
That's like me 50% of the time when I'm out flying, except for a lot longer of the day.
Legitimately you? Because I'm pretty sure that whole thing was for fun. So what we're talking about, guys, you're watching this live, you know it's Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2020. We did post a video on our YouTube channel, but also on our Horizon Hobby YouTube channel. We have a Horizon Hobby Products YouTube channel, which is mostly product focused. We have a Horizon Hobby channel where we do a lot more fun stuff. And that Horizon Hobby channel has the Valentine's video with our very own Kyle in there, and it's pretty funny. You should watch it. It features a very good E-flite airplane, and apparently this is how Cody is in real life.
Don't give it away.
Well, I'm just saying, it's a little strange that
there's
you're
a lot
like
of
that in real life,
suspense there. If you guys like suspenseful trailers and stuff, go check it out. It's a really good video.
It's interesting. It's fun. It's fun.
It is.
So if you're watching this on YouTube later on, it's probably past Valentine's Day. You can still find that video. Also, it was posted on Facebook, and then this is on Facebook as well. But I thought it was hilarious. I was laughing. I had no idea it was coming, and then somebody told me about it, and I watched it. I was like, this is freaking hilarious. But now I will admit, I'm a little nervous that you act like that half the time in real life.
I said I act like that 50% of the time when I go out to fly.
All right, whatever. Yeah. Either way, it's still a little weird.
Oh my goodness. Whatever.
So at any rate, guys, we all love, a lot of us here, we love airplanes, guys. We really do. We've been doing this a long time. We listen to what you guys say. We take your feedback. There's also realistic considerations we have to make on costing sides and practicality sides of business. What can we and can't we do? But I think what we did here, going from the UMX Timber, an already phenomenal airplane, we just tweaked it a little bit and we made it better. Again, you may not like the looks of the Turbo Timber nose, understandable. You can always buy UMX Turbo Timber and swap out the fuselage to the original. We're still gonna sell the parts for that for many years to come. So that fuselage, again, is different. The hatch is different, but we're gonna have those parts for years and years and years. That's a very popular airplane. We're gonna continue to support it. And obviously the UMX Turbo Timber is gonna be the new one going forward. So yes, guys, this UMX Turbo Timber replaces the UMX Timber. We are not going to be selling them both side by side. There are still some UMX Timbers available in the market. You can get them on, at your favorite local hobby shop, online store. We're out of them here ourselves at Horizon Hobby. We've been out of them for about a month, and then this is going to be the only version available. Again, $10 more. So originally the UMX Timber was $129.99. This is $139.99. But guys, $10 more. You get telemetry. You've got more power. Again, you may or may not like the looks, but either way, it's worth it.
It is.
It's already a good deal. It's a 6-channel airplane basically because you got Safe Select in there. You have lights, you got flaps, and you don't even have to build it, guys. It comes in this somewhat largish box, but also not too large. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to do anything. You literally pull it out of the box. You plug in a battery, you bind your transmitter, and you could go fly. Now, you have to set if you want dual rates and if you want to get your flaps going the right way and so on and so forth. You got to do all that. But it doesn't get any easier to enjoy an airplane that you can fly off of grass, gravel, dirt, hand launch, or
snow, water. Got the floats down there, guys.
Optional floats, yeah.
For the guys in the West, when it's snowing, throw those on, take off from snow.
Yes, so optional floats have been around for a long time for our UMXs. That's our kind of typical UMX set. So a combination of hardware that comes with the floats and comes with the airplane. You don't have to buy anything extra. You just buy the plane. You buy the float set. I think they're $20. And you got a float plane. And guys, this thing is a phenomenal float airplane, especially now with more power. That really helps as well. So a lot of great tangible benefits here, guys. I think this thing is by far...
It'll do well.
It's everything that was plus some.
Right.
And there's no negatives to it. I know, yes, some people argue it weighs a little bit more, but if you can tell the difference in the air, you must be a world champion.
I think the higher kV motor is going to offset that a little bit.
Oh,
I mean, I think the only thing that I would be concerned about is when I'm flying in the cold is having a little less flight time, but I'm getting more power.
Yeah, so you got to watch out for that, especially in the cold or your old batteries, because you do have more power now, pulling more current. So you may have to get some new batteries, or you may have to warm up your batteries. Something that a couple of us in the office have done over the years is we actually pre-warm our LiPos. If we're going out on a cold day, we get our car warmed up. And if we charge our LiPos in the house, great.
Right.
And then we take them out to the car, and then you keep them in your warm car. But you want to keep them in there. If you take them out and put them outside with all your stuff, they're going to cool down to the air temperature, and then you're not going to get good performance out of the battery. You'll probably hit LVC even sooner. So keep your battery warm. Make sure it's not too old. Make sure you haven't left it fully charged in storage. That's bad. 50% charge, you want to do that, or give or take, is the best way to store them. Otherwise, they will deteriorate quicker. They will give less performance in a shorter amount of time, so on and so forth. So good batteries are important, but also if you throttle back and fly around the way you flew the original, you'll get probably similar or the same flight time.
Right.
Yeah.
Couple questions. Marshall wants to know if this would work with a DXE transmitter.
Question is, will it work with a DXE transmitter? So technically, yes.
Yes.
It does depend on, there are slight variations of DXE transmitters out there. There's the standard DXE, which is the kind of what we call open stock. That's the version you buy separately from all of our airplanes. That version has plenty of channels, plenty of switches. You can assign anything to wherever you want. If you have an airplane like the Aero Scout, which comes with the DXE with the little S on the end, or if you have the Apprentice, it has the DXE little A.
Right.
Those transmitters do have enough channels to actuate safe select on and off and the flaps. Actually, do they have enough for the flaps?
So what you're going to run into with that, guys, is the transmitters that are coming with the RTF airplanes, like Jason had mentioned, the Aero Scout and the Apprentice. The bind button is going to default to control channel 6, and on those airplanes, that's going to be the panic feature. On the UMX Turbo Timber, that's going to be the flaps. So the only thing that you're not going to get right out of the box without reprogramming your DXE transmitter is going to be the flaps. So you'll be able, you're going to get full control, but your flaps will end up being on the bind button. And you may have to reverse it so they're not sitting full down all the time.
So in theory what you could do then is you could reassign it so the switch that's on there, which would be actuating SAFE and AS3X, can be turned into your flap switch, but you'd have to buy the programming cable to do that.
Correct.
But you can definitely fly it with the DXE. You just need a minimum of a 6-channel transmitter, which those are.
Right.
But the way that it's configured, it affects it. So we show it here, we got the DX6E. Of course, a ton of people have this. This is fine. You can use obviously higher channel count transmitters as well. And you don't need more than 6 channels because you've got 5 channels with the flaps. The 6th channel is for actuating safe select on and off. And again, by default on a UMX, safe select is on channel 5, the gear channel, and the flaps are on channel 6.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I don't see any other questions on your guys. So again, if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments, and Jason and I will monitor that after the feed.
And real quick, I'll just point out that as of today, obviously this is Valentine's Day 2020, this is on pre-order / back order right now, but these are shipping out next week in the US. So if you want to get your hands on one, even for some wintertime flying, this is a great airplane. You can just pop out of your car, pop out of your house, fly around real quick, and go back where it's warm. This is a perfect wintertime airplane. Or fly it indoors.
Right.
If you have a gym, basketball gym, if you're a skilled pilot, 1 basketball court is probably enough. If you're a less skilled pilot, you probably want 2 basketball courts just so you don't have to turn it around all the time. But it's a great indoor model. I mean, that's the beauty of this airplane. Watch our video, guys. You see it flying indoors. You see it flying outdoors. We fly it in the wind. We fly it in cold and hot, off the snow, off the water.
All kinds of places.
It's the most versatile, most capable ultra micro, period. And honestly, I've owned a lot, not all, but a lot of our ultra micros. This is my hands down favorite.
Absolutely.
Everywhere, it goes everywhere. And that's my personal UMX Timber over there. That's the 3rd one.
This one's your personal?
Yeah. Hey, I want to keep that. You're right. I'd say I probably should fly this one all the time.
I'm sure it'll be all right. I'm sure it'll be all right.
But I like looking at it still. It's very nostalgic to me. But that's my 3rd one because I literally wear them out, AKA break them.
Brayton.
That one's still alive.
I do kind of want to go back to the pre-order, back-order thing for a minute.
Yes.
So a lot of our consumers, when we come out with newer product, get confused about what the definition of pre-order and what the definition of back-order means. So right now, I believe the UMX Turbo Timber is showing back-order. Does that mean that they are sold out? What does that mean?
So if you go to our website, so first and foremost, when we never, it's very rare, and we have, but it's very rare for us to announce a product, which usually happens on Thursdays, and it's in stock that day. We intentionally announce it about a week or 2. It used to be many months. We've shortened that up because that doesn't make a lot of sense. We give people about a week or 2's notice from the time we announce it to when we start shipping them, so people can prepare for it, plan for it, so the word can get out on it, so on and so forth. So the day we announce the product, when you go to the product page, you're going to see one of 2 things. You're going to see pre-order, which is exactly that. You click it, you're just putting your name on the list for one of the airplanes from the first shipment. Now, as long as you get in early enough, you'll get it from the first shipment. Otherwise, you're down the list. You may miss the first shipment cutoff, depending on how many we got coming in versus how many pre-orders we get. Now, on occasion, like in this case, the UMX Turbo Timbers, they just started arriving in our warehouse, I think yesterday.
Right.
So the day it went live, that button doesn't say pre-order, it says back order. We actually didn't sell out of them yet, but our system sees they're in the warehouse, but they're not shipping yet, so they're on back order instead of pre-order. Technically, it's still a pre-order circumstance on this airplane. You'll notice that it'll have a date. If that date changes, like it'll say probably late February or mid-February. If that changes to later, then we've sold out of the first shipment.
Right.
We had a lot of these coming in on the first shipment, but it's a very popular airplane. I would not be surprised if it sells out very quickly, and so it's something to watch out for. But right now, again, if you back order or pre-order, it's the same thing. You're just putting your name on the list to get in line. You don't have to pay, at least if you order on our website. If you go to your favorite local hobby shop, your favorite online hobby shop, 9 times out of 10, they don't make you pay anything for a pre-order or a back order. And a pre-order is usually before it ever comes in.
Right.
A back order is usually if it's in stock but then sells out.
Right.
But again, in this case, when it's a new product, they're kind of interchangeable terms.
It does not mean that we are out. It means that they are likely going to be coming back
We're
soon.
not out of these yet, but man, we sold a lot.
We have sold a lot, guys,
already in
but
the
we
first
did
day.
order a lot as well. It is one of our
Yeah.
most popular models for sure.
Yeah, so that said, there's a lot of things happening in the world right now, and so there will probably be delays coming up in a lot of things. So if you want to get your hands on one of these sooner than later, or if you're planning on flying in the spring and you don't want to go, oh, it's beautiful weather, where's my UMX Turbo Timber? Crap, it's on back order. Then get one now. Again, pre-order/back order at horizonhobby.com, favorite online retailer, your favorite local hobby shop. Guys, a lot of hobby shops have already ordered these, have a bunch of them already coming in. So if you've got a local hobby shop, please support them. Go to them, say, hey man, put my name down on one of those that are coming in, because these are going to be going out to them, to everybody, about a week from now.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I don't see much any other comments here in the feed. So again, if you have any comments, please leave them in there, or we'd be more than welcome to answer those for you guys the best we can. Please like, share, and subscribe to this video. We'd like to reach as many people as we can with this information,
Yes.
and we appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.